up. They look like they're trying to wake you up. I mean, to discuss that, you gotta be pretty disgusting.
Golden Debate Show and to the other. We're still fucking up, so it don't matter. But nah, this one's even better than the last. So let's get off with a blast. Like, comment, share, and download. Othershows.com.
Get that mac and cheese, everybody. Deserves that mac and cheese.
I mean, to discuss that, you gotta be pretty disgusting. I'm just trying to wake you up.
Deserves that mac and cheese.
Interesting. Mine's on everyone. Like, comment, share, and download.
I'm just trying to wake you up, everybody. I'm trying to wake you up.
Golden Debate Show. Yeah, the Golden Debate Show. Wow. Golden Debate Show.
I'm just trying to wake you up, everybody. I'm trying to wake you up. There's other guys, what they look like, I don't know. This don't make no sense, everybody.
Wow.
I'm just trying to wake you up, everybody. I'm trying to wake you up.
The jury is out.
Thank you. Love the docket. Love the docket. A lot on the docket.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on now to one of the hottest workout trends. Does it make you bigger instead of smaller? Celebrity trainer Tracy Anderson landed in the hot seat after saying that spinning bulks up the thighs. Juju Chang is a spinning fan. She's here with the skinny.
It's a very revealing People magazine interview with First Lady Michelle Obama just before her 50th birthday. So honest on a range of topics, including her take on plastic surgery and Botox. We've got an exclusive first look right here. The big day is fast approaching. One thing we know for sure is that the president has already given an early gift while on the annual family vacation in Hawaii, taking the girls home to Washington, leaving the First Lady behind for an extra few days of vacay with some of her close friends, including Oprah. She looks so fantastic, and just to be clear, Mrs. Obama says she doesn't imagine having plastic surgery, but she's learned never to say
over the National Security Agency's surveillance practices, especially since the Edward Snowden revelations. Do you think that the NSA, in many of its programs and practices, has gone too far?
The question is whether NSA developed capabilities and applied those capabilities that went beyond the guidelines or the left and right curbs, if you will, that the President and the Congress expected and were briefed on.
The Joe Rogan experience.
It's not, so I might not recognize it, but that's just, I don't know, I speculated. Fucking wasted all your time.
Shazam software.
There's a lot of people out there going, oh yeah, Joe Rogan says that it's totally legal because he farted or something.
You keep on questioning everything. You can't stop.
Let me ask you on that show the question. I looked up the one.
I think I'm done questioning things.
With the one with chemtrails.
Yeah.
That one, like, I don't know either way. I'm not fucking up there, but there is a difference between the ones that do dissipate correct, right away, and the ones that stick around. I mean,
well, again,
what they say about
I am absolutely not a scientist, nor anything that I will say on whether it's about fucking air travel or space exploration, anything that I'll say on anything, the caveat that must be stated is I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I have no education in these subjects, and I'm merely reiterating things that I've heard people say online.
That's like,
if you were to say that, everyone would think so, though. You know what I mean? Yeah, you sound confident about it.
That's the problem.
You know what I mean?
That's the problem.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I sound like an idiot. Well, especially if I'm wrong and I'm super confident. That's how cults get started.
Yeah,
Again,
exactly, 100%.
People are confident. People want to listen to them. But I'm super honest about what I know and what I don't know. I'm fucking as honest as is humanly possible, even if it makes you look like an asshole. But in that situation, I do know for a fact that when contrails are more likely, there's a map on a NASA website. You can go to the NASA's website and they'll show you where contrails will linger in the sky and where they won't. In fact, in 1942, the government was doing a research project on what they called persistent condensation trails. And what they discovered is during various atmospheric conditions, whether there's a lot of moisture in the atmosphere or less moisture, depending on what the conditions are, it will change the length of the contrails that appear behind jets. And when you burn jet fuel, it creates moisture. And when you create moisture out of that burning jet fuel and it changes the temperature of the air as it passes through like that, you literally create a cloud. And so when people are looking at that and they're thinking, oh, the government's spraying us with fake clouds, it's very easy to think that. It's very easy. And this does not mean that they haven't done tests and really unethical things with spraying aerosols from planes. We know they have. We know that pesticides are sprayed from planes, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're familiar. We have that archetype in our head of spraying poison. We've seen the footage from Vietnam where they sprayed Agent Orange to defoliate vast parts and jungles. We've seen all that shit. So we're wary of things that are sprayed from planes. And you should be. But you should also know that there is a huge difference between that and what you're seeing in the sky on a regular basis. And when you start saying that what you're seeing in the sky on a regular basis is the government spraying chemicals, you really throw a monkey wrench into the whole idea of them actually spraying chemicals. Because, first of all, if the argument is that they're spraying aluminum and barium. Again, I'm not a scientist. I'm half retarded. Again. Took a lot of shots to the head as a youngster. But the reality is, if they did spray aluminum and barium in the sky, it wouldn't linger like a cloud. It's lingering like a cloud because it's a cloud. And I know a lot of people have invested a long amount of their life wanting to think that what they're seeing is chemicals. And so it fucks with you because it's hard to admit that you're wrong. It's hard to change gears. We all know that.
Correct.
But in this situation, we have to look at it. There might be times when someone's spraying something from the sky, but the majority of what you're seeing is just a byproduct of a jet engine going through condensation. And then there's the reality. People say, well, are they geoengineering? No, but yes. So here's the reality. The reality is, even though it's just an accidental byproduct of jet travel, it does change the environment, and it is geoengineering. But it's not on purpose.
Not on purpose, yeah.
It's just a part of flying. If we're going to have... There's 93,000 fucking flights a day worldwide. A day. So they're burning jet fuel in the sky above your head. They're taking toxic fuel in fucking 100-gallon wings full of this shit. Your wings are filled up with fucking fuel. And they're burning that shit up in the sky and creating clouds. Fuck yeah, it changes the environment. But it's just like pollution changes the environment in LA. When you're driving on the highway, it's not the government spraying pollution, okay? It's fucking pollution. It's just a byproduct of human civilization. And a byproduct of air travel is, A, they're burning jet fuel in the sky, and B, it creates persistent condensation trails under certain atmospheric conditions. This is the best that I could discern after research and talking to real experts. But this is where people go, you're a fucking disinformation agent. Joe Rogan's working for the government. You gotta stop and look at this shit rationally. If you're wrong about the majority of what you see in the sky, you discredit the possibility, the very real possibility that things have been done. Like there's a study about St. Louis.
Personal misbehavior on a military business trip. This comes just 48 hours after President Obama himself relieved the number 2 in command over the nation's nuclear arsenal over his suspected use of counterfeit poker chips.
I'm just curious on why some
Section 702 and Section 215.
Okay, so they're here.
And these are both sections about which there's been a lot of
There's a difference between sometimes it rains and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there's clouds, sometimes there's nothing in the sky. The conditions apparently when it's right before a crowd, like it's kind of hazy, those are the conditions that are best for creating these persistent conditions. And people have to understand these are fucking Southwest Airlines flights you're looking at. Sometimes, I mean, these are unmarked government planes. Man, do you really know that? What kind of fucking what kind of telescope do you have? How much research have you actually done? Or you like me, do you just reiterate shit that you learn online? Well, doing this show and doing the show on chemtrails,
there's also
more
a great
people
deal
got
of
fucking mad at me because of chemtrails than anything.
Related information collected under the Executive Order 12333.
Because I think they did a shitty job of editing it. And there's no
public attention is focused on a great deal of metadata collected by the National Security Weather Program. And we do speak to that in the recommendations. There's also a great deal of communications related information collected under the Executive Order 12333.
I didn't have 100% say as to how the show got edited. I had say after the fact, I would voice my opinion, it would get overruled, or they would listen to me. It varied. And in this, I lost. And in this, I think we created a bad product. I don't think it represented fully the correct full explanation of what contrails are. I think
eating meat
because it's such a complex issue, I think we load a very complex and scientific
deserves their mac and cheese.
Where we are, because it helped develop the brain rapidly, which is the funniest
Well, that's
thing.
actually a controversial theory.
Is it?
Yeah, because it doesn't work that way with other predators. I mean, jaguars are not chimpanzees. You know, and by the way, that theory I believe was formulated before they realized how many monkeys chimpanzees.
Get that mac and cheese.
They didn't realize how fucking ruthless and violent chimps really were until they started doing some studies. I forget the guy's name who ran the show. It was like a BBC show, but he was the first one to get footage of chimps eating monkeys, and I think that was in the 90s. So I think these ideas that they had about that, there's two other theories. One of them is a throwing arm, and that when people develop the ability to throw things, that sort of like kicked off our evolution. We started killing things that were far away from us, and we started getting better at hunting, and we thrived, and as we thrived, we got a little bit more confidence, and we started like thinking about things more. It's like that, the more calm you can get, the more control over your environment, the more you have free time to think about shit, because you're not always fighting off jaguars and all these different things. So we figured out how to do things like throw spears, throw rocks, you know. That's one theory. That's another theory. The other one is psychedelics. The other one is psychedelic mushrooms. And that's the most controversial one, but really the most fascinating one. And it's Terence McKenna's stoned ape theory. And this theory is that somewhere along the line, and this is the undisputable fact, somewhere along the line, the human brain size doubled over a period of 2 million years. And that is, in the entire fossil record, the most confusing thing. Like, more than anything. Like, they're like, well, how does this happen? Like, it's weird for any organ to grow double the size. But the most spectacular organ as far as creating things on the planet is, in no question, the brain. The human brain is, I mean, we alter our environment. We create nuclear bombs. I mean, beyond a doubt. It all happens supposedly inside this area, and this area doubled in 2 years. Well, it's coincidentally also the same time that the rainforest receded into grasslands. There was a climate change, and Terence McKenna's theory is that monkeys were forced, or lower primates were forced, to come out of the trees and experiment with new food sources because the rainforests were gone, and these animals that were in this once lush environment had to adapt to this new environment. And one of the things they did was there was a lot of cows that were eating the grass, and they would flip over cow turds looking for bugs, and that's the best place for cubensis mushrooms to grow. So these cubensis mushrooms would grow in this cow shit, and these chimps and those whatever the fuck they were, you know, lower primates, Australopithecus, whatever the fuck it was, they would eat these mushrooms. And the idea is twofold. One, that there was a direct increase in their ability to see things, because when you eat psilocybin, especially in low doses, it increases your visual acuity. And the other thing was that it would give them this sort of community, like, loving atmosphere, protecting atmosphere, and that would also aid in their less conflicts. The less conflicts that they had would aid in their innovation, you know, just like with the other thing. And also, they would start having psychedelic experiences, and in large doses, these psychedelic experiences would slowly help them evolve much, much quicker and sort of figure things out that they maybe not have figured out. And the idea, the really weird part of the idea, is that they think, and this is all McKenna and a few other psychos, they think that what mushrooms are is some sort of an alien intelligence that has come here from an asteroid. Because the reason for that is there's nothing that can survive in a vacuum better than spores. And we know that a bunch of shit has come here on asteroids from other planets, like DNA amino acids and the stuff, the building blocks for life. And water comes on comets and asteroids. And we know that spores can survive in a vacuum. And the idea is that somewhere on some other planet, there was some type of a spore, and it came here on an asteroid, landed, and the way it communicates with people is you eat it. And that this is what caused human beings to evolve out of monkeys. I mean, it is one of those 5 bong hit, stare at space, and think it through for like 10 hours. At first, it sounds totally ridiculous that mushrooms are silly. Like, you know,
but is there like, I mean, like, if he's one scientist or whatever that thinks that there's,
well, he's not even a scientist, really. I mean, he was a scholar. I mean, I don't know what he was. The ethnobotanist, I think, was his his chosen.
So,
study.
like, if you ask any of the other thousands of scientists that would know that anything close to what he's talking about
No.
when they think, all right, he's very high.
Yes, sure. Well, first of all, you have to realize that as a scientist, first of all, getting behind anything that advocates a completely new direction in evolution and one based on psychedelic mushrooms, illegal drugs, that's a tough fucking sell. So most scientists would never choose that as a point of study. It's just
is it that, or is it just like, come on?
Could be that. It could be that too. But it's also they discount the idea that mushrooms could be some sort of potential human evolution tool. They discount it. It sounds weird.
Yes. The question is, how do psychedelics pertain basically to the transition from higher primates to human animals? This is my métier because I have a theory to which I am grandly welcome, everyone tells me. But a theory of
I'm just trying to wake you up. I mean, you shouldn't discuss that. You got me pretty disgusting.
That the great embarrassment for evolutionary theory, which can explain the tongue of the hummingbird, the structure of the orchid, the mating habits of the groundhog, and the migration of the monarch butterfly. Nevertheless, the great embarrassment to evolutionary theory is the human neocortex. Lumholtz, who was a pretty straight evolutionary biologist, described the evolution of the human neocortex as the most dramatic transformation of a major organ of a higher animal in the entire fossil record. Well, why is this an embarrassment? Well, because it's the organ that thought up the theory of evolution. So, can you say tautology? That's the problem right there. So it is necessary in evolutionary theory to account for the dramatic emergence of the human neocortex in this very narrow window of time. Basically, in about 2 million years, these higher they went from being higher primates, hominids, to being true humans, as truly human as you and I tonight. What the hell happened? What was the factor? The Earth was already old. Many hundreds of higher animal forms had come and gone, and the fire of intelligence had never been kindled. So what happened? I think that the answer lies in diet, generally, and in psychedelic chemistry in particular. I think that as the African continent grew drier, we were forced out of the ecological niche we had evolved into, which was we were canopy-dwelling primates, insectivores, complex signaling repertoire, evolutionary dead end. But when we came under nutritional pressure,
get that mac and cheese. Everybody deserves their mac and cheese.
Humanness at every stage of its development are maddening flexibility. Other animal and plant species can't react. We can. Our flexibility, we began to experiment with a new kind of diet and to leave the trees and explore the new environment of the grassland. And evolving concomitantly in the grassland were various forms of ungulate animals, double-stomached animals whose manure is the ideal medium for mushrooms, coprophytic mushrooms, dung-loving mushrooms, many of whom produce psilocybin. Well, I myself,
I'm just trying to wake you up, everybody.
Have seen
I'm trying to wake you up.
Baboons spreading out over grassland and notice that their behavior is they flick over old cow pies. Why? Because there are beetle grubs there. So they already had a behavioral vector for nutrition, for protein, that would lead them to investigate the cow pies. Well, in the Amazon, after a couple of days of fog and rain, these psilocybin mushrooms, Stropharia cubensis, can be the size of dinner plates. I mean, in other words, you can't miss it.
I'm just trying to wake you up, everybody. I'm trying to wake you up.
Miss it. And the taste is pleasant. And psilocybin has unique characteristics, both as hallucinogen and other properties that make it the obvious chemical trigger for higher processes, and I'll run through this quickly for you, but here it is. In very low doses where you wouldn't say you were stoned or loaded or anything like that, but just in doses you might obtain by nibbling as you foraged, it increases visual acuity. In other words, it's like a technological improvement on your vision. Chemical binoculars lying there in the grass. Well, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out if an animal is a carnivorous forager and there's a food which improves its vision.
Get that mac and cheese.
Those that avail themselves of that food will have greater success maintaining food and rearing their children to sexual maturity, which is the name of the game in evolution. So step one, small doses of psilocybin increase visual acuity and food-getting success. Step two, slightly larger doses of psilocybin in primates create what's called arousal. This is what you have after a double cappuccino. In highly sexed animals like primates, you get male erection.
There's other guys,
so what
they
do you
look
have
like,
here?
I
You
don't
have a
know.
factor
This
which
don't make no sense to everybody.
what anthropologists without a trace of humor refer to as increased instances of successful copulation. In other words, the animals eating the psilocybin are more sexually active, therefore more pregnancies are occurring, therefore more infants are being born, therefore there is a process which would tend to automatically outbreed the non-psilocybin using members of the population. Step 2 toward higher consciousness. Step 3, you eat still more mushrooms. Now you're not foraging with sharp, nor are you horsing around with your opposed gender acquaintances. Instead, you're nailed to the ground.
I'm just trying to wake you up, everybody. I'm trying to wake you up.
And one of the amazing things about psilocybin above, say, 5 or 6 grams of dried material is it causes glossolalia, spontaneous bursts of language-like behavior under the obvious control of internal syntax. And I believe syntax existed before spoken language, that syntax controls spatial behaviors and body languages and is not necessarily restricted to the production of vocal speech. So there it is in a nutshell. We ate our way to higher consciousness. The mushroom made us better hunters, better survivors. Among those in the population who used it, their sexual drive was increased, hence they outbred the more reluctant members of the tribe to get loaded. And finally, it created a kind of neuroleptic seizure, which led to these downloading of these syntactically controlled vocalizations, which became the raw material for the evolution of language. And it's amazing to me, the straight people, the academics, believe language is no more than 35,000 years old. That means it's as basic to
to discuss that, you gotta be pretty disgusting.
It's just something somebody invented 35,000 years ago. It's got nothing to do with primate evolution and, the long march of hominidity and all that malarkey. No, it's just an ability, a use to which syntax can be put that previously
Get that mac and cheese, everybody deserves the mac and cheese.
To discuss that, you gotta be pretty disgusting. Discuss that. You gotta be disgusting.
Unless you're living in deep fear, go home and write and come drop next year with stacks of rhymes that you be feeling the truth for being stuck in the ice cream and didn't know the scoop on the genius. Words from a genius.
That there are not enough voters, members of Congress, that would vote right now today to open this government. It's something called a continuing resolution, but it's a bill that you put on the floor that has been passed already by Republicans and Democrats in the United States Senate. This is not an idea of anyone over another person. Republican and Democratic senators have already voted for this clean bill that we could vote on today. We have martial law. What that means, and my colleagues know what it means, is that you can put a bill on in just minutes.
And if you look at how it's flying across the video, it's not flying that fast. Like I can see it. So how can I not see it with my eyes? But I can see it on camera. And then the other one just shows us.
But did you see the underwater ones and the space ones?
For Toy Story real, there is without a doubt information the government has been hiding. Dude, what you're doing right now is called you're making a plea to ridicule.
Rods are just tiny chemtrails.
Nice.
Yeah, they might as well be. You know, I thought they were real, man. I really did.
That.
You know, I saw a video once that showed that there were fucking buildings on the moon. Like this fucking guy had these images. Oh, even worse than that. How about the face of Mars? How about that motherfucker? You ever see the face on Mars?
No.
Yeah, well, there's images that people will swear to you. The government has basically doctored the second, more high-resolution images. There was some photos they took like a long time ago of Mars, and as they flew over Mars, it shows what looks like a five-sided pyramid and a face on Mars.
I've seen those
and
photos,
even my own friend, who I love dearly, Graham Hancock, wrote a dumbass book about all this shit.
I love this friend dearly, dumbass.
Dumbass, but he admits it was a mistake. He admits it. But that shit's important, man. It's that's clearly it's a face. If you look at the shape, it does not appear in nature. These are two eyes. Bitch, you don't know what the fuck you're looking at, okay? You're looking at a spot that you decided. That's like looking at the clouds and thinking that you're seeing dragons. You know, you also could be seeing a fucked up cloud, because clouds aren't perfect symmetrical squares, you shithead. All right? And you're looking at some thing that you barely tell what the fuck you're looking at. Clearly, it's a face on Mars. And there's a dude who has these videos where he measures like these arbitrary distances. Like if you measure from the nose to the left front center of that pyramid, it is the exact same distance as the Sphinx to the Pyramid of Giza.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, how the fuck did you come to that conclusion?
In the White House.
Yes, if you look at it from the White House in a 44-inch television in the corner where Clinton used to get his blowjobs, from that room, clearly the pyramid has a face on it that looks like the face on Mars. I rest my case. And people fucking buy the DVD and call each other on the phone and, dude, there's some shit you gotta see. There's some man who's dropping some truth. Some mad truth about the pyramid. And the next thing you know, you're getting fucking email blasts. Have you seen this about the pyramid? Like, you motherfuckers! It's not a fucking face on the Mars. There might be. But that's not it. I mean, there might be some other shit. It doesn't mean there's not some other shit. As a matter of fact, the pyramid shapes on Mars are way more interesting than the face. Because the face, when they show the high-resolution images of the face, these have been doctored, clearly doctored. These are not high-resolution photographs. In fact, they are less than half of the gigabytes that it would be if it was a true 85 gigapixel fucking picture. But there are some, like, symmetrical objects that exist that do look like five-sided pyramids. Like, you pull up that, because that is kind of interesting.
I want to see that.
Yo. It's kind of interesting, but it's also possible that those things exist naturally. There's a lot of weird shapes that exist naturally. Like, there's this, I forget what it's called, Giant's Causeway, I think, in Ireland. Let me think if that's it. Let me see if that's it. But it's this crazy rock formation that's totally natural. Ireland. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Go there.
Where?
Go to Giant's Causeway in Ireland. And tell me this shit doesn't look like some motherfuckers were building a building. But it's not. It's not at all. It's just some weird, crazy, natural formation. If you saw this on an image of Mars, if someone sent you this, clearly these are cobblestones on a Martian street. They have cars like ours. They're probably shaped like us. Go to that radio station. Look at these images. Look at this shit. Look at that. This is in Ireland. Tell me if you saw that on Mars, you wouldn't start shitting your pants. Clearly, Earth is a sophisticated civilization. Perhaps aliens came down and ruined them, took their women. Look at that. I mean, that shit looks so, that looks so unnatural. It looks like someone made a cool-ass cobblestone street. But it's just a natural formation when these, this is King Midas, stones get shaped into weird patterns. But look at that. If you look at that, you would swear that has to be made by somebody. But it's not. It's totally natural. And, and there's varying stages of it. They can actually see like how it's developed. I don't know. I'm not, obviously not. What are they called? What's a geologist? Someone who understands rocks.
Get that mac and cheese. Everybody deserves their mac and cheese.